current outfit is a sports bra and a maxi skirt. So, fight me? I don't know. Hello and welcome to Can Month Day. Time isn't real. Today I'm going to be talking about Bottle Rocket Hearts by Zoe Whittall. I first heard about this book when Jason, Jessica, and Ron talked about it on Hello Hemlock last year. I've talked about all of them in another video, so just watch that. So I knew that it was set in Montreal in 1995 during one of the various referendums on Quebec separation, which was one of many events in a very long, tumultuous relationship between English and French Canada. I didn't totally remember what they'd said about it in their videos when I saw it in my library bookstore, besides that it was kind of pretentious, but queer canlit. I'm gonna buy it. The story is about Eve, who is graduating high school in the English-speaking suburbs of Montreal. Don't be a douchebag in this one. So she's around 18, 19-ish, but she has this secret life of going into the city and being part of the queer scene. And she has her girlfriend Della, who's like her first big love. So it follows her moving out and going to university and becoming more involved in the feminist and queer movement. And just growing up in general. It's a very condensed coming of age story because it only covers like 1 or 2 years, I think. And there is quite a measurable difference from her at the beginning and her at the end in terms of her character development. I feel like the critique of the book being like hipster and pretentious comes from the writing style. And I could definitely see how at the beginning it could be super annoying because it is kind of pretentious. But for me, I actually felt like it really worked with the character of Eve and the story. Because even when I flip through my journals and I'm writing at a particularly emotionally vulnerable stage and I'm feeling very lost and angsty and what have you, that's kind of the writing style that I think that position brings out, because I think that like mental state or being in that position brings out kind of dramatic and pretentious writing a little bit. So that didn't particularly bother me because I feel quite close to that. And I just kind of saw the writing style as being a part of her as a character in terms of her whole mental state. But I could definitely see that if you feel more removed from that kind of state of mind, mid-20s even and later, I could see why that would seem like annoying and juvenile. Identity also plays a huge role in the book because Eve is trying to find her place within the referendum debate because she is from an Anglo part of the city and her girlfriend Della is hardcore rural Quebecois separatist. And then also seeing how that intersects in Montreal as kind of like a merging place, and particularly in the queer community. I thought that was really interesting, seeing how the politics of the queer community and of the referendum mélanged. Something else that I'm really glad that got brought up in the debate was a lot of the racist discourse around the separatist movement, specifically obviously in this one referendum. Because when Eve and her roommates are talking about which way they voted in the referendum, one of her roommates, Rachel, is the one who brings up that she actually ended up voting no because of the lack of consultation with Indigenous communities. Then as they were watching the results on the TV, there was politicians who were blaming a lot of the loss on the referendum for the ethnic vote because they cannot truly align themselves with the Quebecois separatist movement. Another thing that kind of came across in the book for me is like the idea of nostalgia, which sounds bad because this is set in 95, like the year I was born. Part of it is the writing style, I think, and just the use of payphones and how communication was like slightly different. And also like the descriptions of the Montreal area, not like Montreal is in the city, but Montreal, particularly in the summertime. In terms of her involvement with the queer community, that's one of the greatest things I admire about Eve as a character, because even though she wasn't completely sure of her identity or her sexual orientation and was just totally comfortable with it and didn't have huge problems kind of figuring out her place. Because when I came out to myself as bisexual, one of the first things that I questioned was, am I part of the queer community? Because up until that point, I had been identifying as straight and being like an ally, so I had no real experience of involvement with the community, and I wasn't sure like, are you just part of the community because you are LGBTQ or non-straight? Or are there like specific things you have to do to be considered to be part of the community? Like, is it enough to even just talk about the issues as someone who identifies as being somehow gay? And I also really liked how she discussed her sexual orientation, because she talks about how uncomfortable she was with a lot of labels. Like, bisexual didn't feel right to her, lesbian didn't feel right to her either, but the one label she felt worked for her was femme. And she also talks a lot about how men or the masculine will always still be part of her attraction. So she's attracted to very masculine women and very feminine men, which, like, same. So attracted to feminine men. Daniel J. Layton can get at me. Also attracted to shorter men and tall women. But that's besides the point. The reason I unexpectedly enjoyed this book so much, I think, is because of the connection I had with it, and being like around the same age and kind of questioning the same kind of stuff in terms of sexual orientation and where you belong in different communities and movements. I found the perfect description of my own mother. My mom isn't like hers, by the way. My mom's way better. But like, I've never found such a perfect description. So in a lot of ways, I just felt like we were kind of in the same place or coming from the same things. I think it's just a case of reading it at the right time. So I feel like if you didn't really connect to it in that way, and if you feel kind of removed from her emotional state, you might not enjoy it as much. I do think about her now. Like, she would be around 40. I want to know what happened to her. What is her life like now? What is she doing? I'm also really happy that I own this book too, because when the NSFW booktube tag was going around, which is my favorite tag, I love watching those videos. One of the questions is, do you own like an NSFW book cover? And whenever I'd watch those videos, I'd be like, I can't do that tag because I own nothing. Now I do.